Fam, welcome to episode 12 of the DMC Podcast, Deep and Meaningful Chats with your host, me, Adam Rigby, and the incomparable Mr. Cody Hunter. Today, fam, massive day for us, our first guest. Please welcome the man responsible for the movement and motivation of millions of people across the globe daily. He is the program director for Les Mills Bodypump, Les Mills RPM, and Les Mills Sprint. Devoted father, loving husband of three. He is a fitness icon. Some would say part man, part machine, but he is all heart. Deep thinker, self-development addict, and one hell of a nice guy. Please welcome Mr. Glen Ostergaard. Glen, welcome to the studio.
Hey guys, hello. Thank you for inviting me on to the show. Looking forward to it. Mate, and what an intro. What an intro.
Absolute pleasure. Well, one hit, mate. One hit, yeah.
Mate, there we go.
Mate. I played it down.
Questions have been answered in the intro.
We've done the back work for you. Adam is good at this, mate. He's done his research and he knows you well. And mate, thanks for joining us on the podcast, and we're out. Peace. No, mate. Yeah. Nice thanks for joining, bro. Yeah, awesome, Glen. Thanks, mate.
Look, we really appreciate your time, and you know, as I explained previously, that intro was edited down. Glen, you are a busy man. You're a busy man. So we really appreciate the fact that you've joined us today. A special day for you too. Ella's 4th birthday today.
It was actually yesterday. But yeah.
Oh, yesterday. Yesterday.
Yeah. It was yesterday. 20th of May. Yeah.
How awesome, mate. How awesome is that? Mate, so you know, a couple of things. I've known you for a long time related to Les Mills in the world of fitness, through RPM predominantly and later through Sprint, and fascinated with the process that you go through. So start with a couple of the gym questions and the obvious questions, and then we'll go into some stuff about leadership. You're the perfect person to speak to. What does a day or a week in the life of Glen Ostergaard look like?
So I sort of have my easier days and I have my sort of longer days. Like a longer day for me starts about 4 in the morning. So I'll get up 4:15. Like I did this yesterday. So I have sort of days where I have 3 or 4 days of the week I get up super early. And then I spend, do you want me to go into the details or just?
Yeah, mate. Outline the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So yesterday was an example. I got up at 4. And then I spend a good hour on the rituals that I have every morning, and I'm starting to sort of drop that onto my Instagram now. And so I have a set schedule for about 60 minutes before I go and do something. And I'll get up, I'll get some caffeine because I need that in the morning, and then I'll go downstairs. I have an office downstairs that I work in, and I'll go down there and I'll do my affirmations and my focus and my affirmations. I wouldn't call it meditation. I haven't quite got that far yet. And I do that for a set amount of time. And then I have a journal that I write in, and I've been doing that for a wee while now. So I do my affirmations and my focus. I do my journaling, and then I read something. So I have a series of books that I'm reading, and that takes about sort of 30 minutes. And then I'll do, because I'm going to go and do some exercise, then I'll stretch, because as I've got older, I found out that I need to stretch. So I stretch 15, 20 minutes. So there's 50 minutes. And then I get ready. And like yesterday morning, I went out for a run. So I go running. So I run quite early in the morning when it's not so many people around. And then I'll run. And then I came back after my run and I jumped on my bike. I just got a spin bike. And then I listened to a podcast. So I'll ride along for another hour or so, and I'll listen to a podcast that I'm following. So that's, sort of first 2 or 3 hours, and it's quite self-indulgent in a way.
Wow.
But I find that it really, really sets me up for the day. And once I've done that, if I do those days, I do that, like I feel unstoppable, right? I've caffeinated up, I've filled my mind with positivity, I've written down everything that's circulating in my head, I've opened my body up, been outside, I've come back and I've schooled myself up. So that brings me to about 7 o'clock. Then between 7 and 9, it's all about the kids, right? They're getting up and it's breakfast and it's making beds and helping Sarah with the lunches. And, then 9 o'clock, it's drop-off time. And after drop-off time, it's work time. So between 9 and whatever, I'll start whatever I'm working on that I need to be working on that day. If there's meetings at office, I'll go into the office. Sometimes I have lunchtime classes, so some of the days devoted to that. And then it's 5 o'clock. It's clock off for now, and then it's 5 till 7:30. It's kids, right? That's kids, beds and baths and dinner and stuff. And then probably another hour in the evening, we started doing some more work on stuff. So day finishes probably about 9:30, and then in bed sort of 10:15 to do the same thing again. And that's that. I mean, that's a big day. They're not always like that, but those are the big productive days.
Hey, Glenn, on your morning schedule and your routine, I know a lot of our listeners and myself included take a lot of time to get used to building that routine. And number one, waking up early. Like I'm the same as you. I wake up very similar times, but I wasn't always like that. I'm just curious, were you always like that? And if so, how did you stay so disciplined? And if not, how did you start that habit up of being able to wake up that early and be on in the mornings?
I think over time I've just developed it. I mean, I've always sort of got up early to do things, and I've always said, right, I used to get up at 6, and 6 to 7 was my time. And then I figured out I didn't have enough time. So I thought, I'll get up at 5, and I still didn't have enough time. So now I get up at 4. But I read a good book by Robin Sharma. It's called The 5 a.m. Club. And I just and that was quite cool. And I sort of just based a lot of what I'm doing on what he said. And that's a good book if you guys want to read that, The 5 a.m. Club. So we call it 4:15 a.m. Club,
Yeah, I like that. It's like that whole, if you want to make some more time, and most of us in the evening spend our time watching TV till late, for example. And so you stay up late and then you can't wake up early where, hey, mate, get to bed, because the morning is just gold, isn't it? It's free time. Kids are in bed. It's your time to do what you need to do. I'm a full advocate of the early morning. Yeah,
and it's just so peaceful, like there's nothing, there's no distractions, and it's dark, and I like that sort of, you're doing things that other people don't normally do, and if you want to really make something of yourself or get ahead or whatever, you got to do what other people don't do, and that's one of the things,
It's awesome. Now it's on the webby, a little bit of research, and it says that at the age of 16, obviously you got into the world of weights for your father, brought you into this inner sanctum of the gym and gave you a weights program. How did that lead from there to this world of aerobics and the drive to make that your career?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose my dad inspired me, and with what he used to do. I mean, he's sort of like a person that goes not against the grain, but he does things that other people don't do. So way back in the 60s, because he's from Denmark, he's an immigrant. He moved here in the 60s, and he was working on farms and stuff. And he hooked up with some of his mates that were working on the farm, and they formed like a weight training club. So he used to work on a tobacco farm, and they had this old tobacco kiln that no one was using. So they built a little gym in there, and they got, it was way back when all you could do is you could buy weights, like the Don Oliver weights and things, and the York barbells and stuff, but you couldn't have, there was no benches and stuff. So one of his mates was a welder. So he welded a bench and a squat rack and a leg press machine. And so him and his mates started doing that. And every now and then I'd go down and watch them. And I was like, 4 or 5. And then when we finally moved to the house that my parents are in now, he used to still keep training, and I'd go down and bother him. And then eventually he sort of gave in and gave me a weight training program, and then I just sort of started from there. And because back then no one else did weights, and it sort of made me sort of stand out. Right, I'm going to go and do some weights, and or get strong, and that was sort of Dad's attitude, And I suppose that once I'd done that, I sort of just fell into going to the gym. I went to university, and I joined the university gym. Then I joined Gold's Gym, and I met a man called Warren Finn. Now, Warren Finn at the time was New Zealand's premier bodybuilder. And so he was sort of my first mentor in the gym, and I used to sort of talk to him about bodybuilding and stuff. And then he moved to Les Mills, and I thought, I'll go to Les Mills too. And so he was a personal trainer there, and I followed him there, and I joined there. And one day I walked past one of the aerobic classes. It was Body Attack or whatever it was called. I looked up at the instructor and said, I can do that. Look at that. I don't know who it was. I said, I can do that. So immediately I went and did my workout, and I went downstairs to the reception and says, how do you become an instructor? And they had a course coming up. Do this course. Okay, sign me up. And then a few weeks later, I was doing the course, and it just sort of snowballed from there. You know, I was pretty determined individual, and I still am. I thought, right, if those guys can do it, I can do it. You know, and I mean, I can tell you the whole story, or we can cut it short. What do you want me to do?
Mate, keep going, mate.
This is
awesome.
gold.
Yeah.
This is absolute gold.
Yeah.
So I did the course, right? And the manager of the gym was Maureen Baker. And so, you know, damn it, I'm going to go and talk to Maureen. I walked into Maureen's office. Says, Maureen, I need a class. Give me a body tech class. Like pretty much like this, really arrogant. And she said to me, you're not good enough to be an instructor in my gym, so you can just get out of my office right now. And I was like, okay. So I walked out of the office. I thought, right, I'm going to show you. So I sort of set these goals, and I just really had this mindset in my head. I'd be running around Hagley Park, because I was in Christchurch, going, I'm going to become a body tech instructor. I'm going to become. And I just conditioned my mind to it. And then, like the next morning, she rang me and says, "Oh, I haven't got a body tech class for you, but you can start teaching circuit." I went, okay. So I started teaching circuit, and then eventually, over time, I wore her down with persistence and arrogance, and I don't know whatever you want to call it. And she gave me a body tech class, and then from that day on, I was sort of off. And then I said, right, now I've got my first class. I'm going to be the best instructor in the gym. 5 years later, boom. And I thought, right, now what do? I know, I'll go to Auckland and I'll take Mike McSweeney's job. Go to Auckland. But you know, talk to Ruth Pirahi. Ruth, I want that class there. That's Mike's class. I don't care. I want Mike's class. You know, and she thought I was an arrogant little shit, and rightly so. And then I suppose the rest is history, you know.
Mate, we talk about self-belief and determination, and you know, it's not necessarily arrogance, but that drive and self-belief that you had, and turning what is aerobics back to that love of weights, and becoming, you know, by far unquestionably the gold standard for instructors, fitness instructors worldwide. I'm fascinated because, mate, you are always in great shape. You are always in great shape.
Thank you.
You seem to reinvent yourself. So year after year, there is always something different for you. It's you have a new focus. Your body shape changes, but you are always looking sharp. I mean, what drives that? Is it that are you keeping up with trends? Are you focusing on setting trends? Are you just trying to add value to the entire program by adding value to your core competencies?
I think as a person, I'm curious. I've always been a curious child. I like to learn. I like to talk to people and ask questions and find out things that I don't know. I like to read books. I mean, I used to go to the library when I was a youngster, and I'd get out books and all sorts of different things I was interested in. Like I used to be into rock hounding, so I'd get books out on rocks and read about that. Or I used to be into athletics. I was an athlete, so I'd get books out on how to train as an athlete and what the top athletes do. I mean, I was never a top athlete. I was good. I was, you know, above average, but I was never going to be Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or anyone like that. So I just like to learn, right? And so what I've done, I've applied that to my programs. And over the years, as the fitness industry has changed, I've jumped on different trends that have come through. Like, you know, CrossFit came through. I did that, and you know, I did powerlifting. I did, you know, all that sort of Louis Simmons West Side barbell stuff. I've done obviously running and I did competitive cycling. Yeah. And I suppose I just like to do different things to learn about stuff. And then what I do when I go off on a tangent, I'll sort of pull some of that knowledge. If it was powerlifting, I'll pull some of that knowledge into pump. If it was CrossFit, I'll take some of the Olympic lifting principles into pump. If it's back on my bike now a little bit, so now I'm starting to bring that outdoor feel back into RPM. So I just like to keep myself, you know, upskilled and learn and stimulated. And then I find once I do that, I just pull little bits into the programs and then just push things along as the industry changes. And yeah, I suppose it all comes from a curious mind.
Mate, I love that. And I talk about that in my past personally as well. But the whole, when someone comes to you and asks you for advice on a topic, you've got real life experience to talk about versus, you know, Cody, for example, for I did a bodybuilding show once years ago, purely out of an experiment, because people would ask me and I wanted to have real life knowledge to be able to share, or from my opinion or my experience. So just makes that conversation awesome, to be like, yeah, you know, I've had a go at that, and this is what I've felt from that, or this is what I believe from that. And yeah, makes programming pretty adventurous, when you've got all that background knowledge.
Yeah, it means you have lots of little baskets to pull upon. You know, if it's cardio, if it's metabolic training, if it's weight training, if it's kettlebell training, if it's Olympic lifting, if it's CrossFit training. You know, the list goes on and on and on. And because I've been doing this, you know, I'm coming up 30 years in the fitness industry. I've done things not once, not twice, but 3 times around. You know, like I've gone round and round and round, and the industry hasn't changed a lot. It's just that the method of delivery has changed. You know, which is kind of cool, really, if you look back.
It just shows what works, eh?
Yeah.
Works,
and the basic
sure.
things always work no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
And the philosophy, you know, I mean, I like to think about it as being your own biggest experiment, and in terms of knowledge and in terms of testing things. And you seem to encapsulate that beautifully. A couple of things, mate, you know, we've worked on some of your strengths, and guys like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan will talk about, you know, the importance of continuing to develop your strengths as well. But what are some of the things that, in terms of weaknesses, the things that you are continuously trying to improve outside of your skill set?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm always a firm believer in, you really find out what your strength is, and it takes a while, you know, unless someone tells you, you know, so you have a conversation with someone, they say, right, this is what you're good at. It takes you a while to figure that out. And for me, it probably took about a decade teaching, you know. So I finally figured out what it is that I bring to the stage and what it is that I do that brings people into the room. Quite early on, I knew what my weaknesses was, because I remember I got a quality control thing back from Maureen. So my first or second body attack class, she came and did me a QC. And basically what she said to me is that it was my connection to the people in the room. That was the thing. I mean, I scored high in physicality and all the things that I'm good at. But the thing I was not so good at was that connection and that communication. So, and that's been with me ever since, you know. Not a lot's changed in 30 years, to be honest. But it's probably the thing that I have to work on the most, you know. And because I'm naturally an introverted person, I find that for me to step out into the world and to do that, it takes a lot of emotional energy. And so that's for me is my work on. All the other stuff is like, I can do it without even thinking about it. So if I'm ever really conscious of what I have to do, then it's, you know, it's being present, being open, smiling, you know, talking to people, and, you know, and that's what I find the hardest. And that's what I'm always having to just tap away at and work at. And that's cool. I accept that. And that's probably the weak link for me when I'm on stage and teaching. Sometimes I can be really good, sometimes I can not be, but that's just the way I am, and I understand that, and I know how to work around that and what I have to do.
That's awesome, mate. Hey, I wanted to brush a little bit on, just follow up on that when you said you're a bit of an introverted person, but also the amount of energy you have to give out in group classes. I know also from experience, and the amount of energy just through an entire day. How do you recharge? How does Glenn recharge and build that energy back up?
Yeah, so like 2 weekends ago, we had the live filming, and that to me was a huge week leading up to it with all the prep, and then the class, you know, all the people, and so I can do that. I can do it. I can stay in the zone. As soon as it's finished, I just need to run away somewhere and sort of hide in a cave and just let time sort of heal me. You know, introverts. Like an extrovert feeds off other people's energy, and they need that. You know, introverts feed off their internal energy, their thinking and their processes. So for me, it's going back into that natural introvert. You know, reading, sitting back. You know, just staying away from that for a while till I sort of recharge my battery, and that always happens for me. You know, so I just need to, you know, watch TV or watch a movie or hang out with the kids or read a book or just be away from people for a bit until I can recharge myself.
And it can be its own little planet, can't it, Glenn? Because, you know, a lot of people outside of that environment won't really understand. But I mean, from my perspective, the impact you have when you walk into a room, and it's not just about what you do, it's about who you are. You know, you can feel, you're one of these people that walk in and you can feel your presence. You have great mana, and it's you know, it's what's the word? It's a really intense charisma, if that's the right way to word it, a really intense charisma that you possess. And people out there listening or viewing would really understand that the impact you have by just being yourself is something that you should be really commended on, mate, because you're always gracious, you are always humble in an intense environment where people are always pulling and pushing. When you are at the forefront, at the absolute top of your game, you are resolute to who you are 100%. And that's something we're trying to push across as a philosophy. So I just want to say, mate, good on you for just being excellent at what you do, but also being excellent at being you.
Thank you.
No worries, mate.
I never ever see that. I mean, it's interesting to say, because you never ever, like, when you're in the jar, you can never see the label, you know. So
yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
No worries, mate. And so when you're at the top of your game, who gives you feedback? Who does Glenn turn to?
Obviously, in the filming process and the lead up and stuff, there's Jackie and Diana. You know, they're sort of sitting in the back there, driving the programs. Diana for Pump. She's the creative director, so I work with her quite closely. And Jackie is an overall sort of mentor and person that I sort of look to for guidance with the programs. Kylie Gates, she's sitting in there as well, you know, as a coach, and she's always good to talk to. Every now and then, Basil floats in and out. That's Philip Mills, and yeah, I mean, you get to know that man. He's amazing. You know, he's done some stuff that's unbelievable. You know, and he'll sort of float in and out. So it's sort of over the last, over my career with the company, it's been those sort of those 4 or 5 people that have always been amongst what I'm doing. You know,
what a collection of people that is too, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reference to the reading that you do. I know you are a kind of compulsive reader. You've got an extensive library. If you could pass on your top 3 reads to our listeners and viewers, and what we're going to do is create a library. So we'll write these down and send the links. What would they be and why?
I mean, if you guys have been following some of the Instagram and stuff I've just started doing, I mean, years ago, I began by reading, there was 4 books that, I was in Amway. Amway was a network marketing company, and they suggested that you read 4 books. And the first one was Think and Grow Rich. These are really old, you know, probably a little bit outdated in their philosophy and stuff, but the philosophies might be outdated, but the learnings are not. So there was Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. So those are the 4 sort of Bibles. And back then there wasn't many others to choose from. But over time, the last eon of time, I've read lots of different types of books. So I quite like that's the old generation. And when you read those sorts of books, you can sort of see by the way it's written and the way how it's all framed that it's quite old sort of school writing. And then some of the recent stuff I've read, I've got a few here. I like this guy here. It's Start with Why. Yeah,
Simon Sinek.
That's Simon Sinek.
Yeah, amazing.
Simon. Yeah,
Big fan.
He's awesome. He's got a lot of books, and he's a modern thinker. I like him. Here's another guy. I don't know if you've read this guy here. His name is Matthew Syed, and he's got a book. And now this book, if you want to change the way you think about the world and how the world works, read this book. It's called Rebel Ideas. He's an Englishman, and in it he talks about the power of cognitive diversity. You know how diversity is a real hot topic now out in the world, and ethnic diversity and then all that stuff that's going on with Black Lives Matter and all those really controversial things that are happening. He talks a bit about that, and he also talks a little bit about cognitive diversity, which is having diversity of thinking. So that there, I would recommend it. It's not a self-development book, but he's a good thinker. And so what you want to do is find people who are good thinkers. He's one. Another guy that I've followed for quite a while is Malcolm Gladwell. Now, he's awesome. He writes about, his books are so interesting. And this one's Outliers, and then he's got like a series of them. His first one was The Tipping Point and Blink. So those are really good ones.
Yep.
But he's a good thinker. And what I like about his books is that he does lots of research and has these really interesting stories, like it's fascinating, these ideas and stuff. And then he sort of pulls it all together into a book. So he's really, really good. And then other stuff like this man here, he's the man. Anthony Robbins.
Yeah.
You are the man, Anthony Robbins. If you can get through this book, Awaken the Giant Within, I've read it 3 or 4 times now. If you can get through that book, you can do anything. Because this is hard read. It's like, look how thick that is, like 1,000 pages. But he's the guru, right? So Napoleon Hill and Carnegie, they were the old school. He's the guy in the middle, and he's Simon Sinek and Gladwell and all those guys. They're modern thinkers. But I reckon he's the man. So if you could read, I mean, I've got dozens of them sitting on the floor there. If you could read any of those books, it'll make such a difference to the way that you think and perceive how the world is, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's my top 15.
I love how you say, like, look for those different thinkers, because we talk about this and you talk about, even on whatever you follow on on social media or on YouTube, whatever, it always finds people that believe what you believe, right? In a way, it always puts you in the same categories. You enjoy watching UFC videos, all of a sudden you're bombarded with UFC videos. It just boom. They know, So you really do have to be a focused effort to bring in different thoughts and ideas from different directions. Otherwise you won't, and you get that big echo chamber and you think you're right and you're perfect and everything's in your world's the way it should
echo
be.
Chamber.
And it's so good to see it from different perspectives, and that's I really like the way you put that. Just search out and find those different thinkers. That's cool.
Yeah, start with Matthew Syed, Rebel Ideas. That'd be out of all those books, that'd be the one I'll read. That's so interesting. He's such a good thinker,
Next, I'm in. Now, obviously, as a leader, not just as a fitness leader, but obviously as a man, as a human, as a father, as a family man, we talk about the importance of embracing other ideas and embracing people that are not quite like us. Because in today's society, it's very easy to say, oh, they don't think like me, delete, remove, slide to the right. What are some of the qualities or philosophies that you carry as a leader? I mean, do you see yourself as a leader? Does that sit well with you?
Well, and probably not. I mean, like I suppose I don't have direct leadership. Like I don't turn up to the office and command my people in the room. I don't have that sort of leadership role. My role more is as a creator, obviously of the programs, and then as the face of some of the programs, and then as the what's the word I'm after? I lead like Richie McCaw. He's quite a quiet sort of person, but he led through example. Yeah. So I'd sort of mold myself on that type of leader. I lead through example, and I'll show people the way, and we'll just sort of get on with it, like he was. That would be my sort of leadership style. I just don't have that direct day-to-day leadership like a manager or a CEO has.
Yeah, I think Simon Sinek has some great views on leadership, and obviously he's got a book around leaders eat last. But the view around the inclusive nature and how we all can carry the mantle of leader, and if our leadership is, I guess, dysfunctional, for want of a better word, we can do a couple of things. We can remove ourselves from the situation, we can complain about it, or actually we can be the type of leader that we want. That we lead the way you want to be led is a philosophy that Simon Sinek pushes, which I think is really, really important. So I think we can all carry that mantle of leaders, and again, Cody and I are trying to push us to be leaders out in the community, leaders about being kind, leaders about care. Wearing the pink t-shirt today because of the anti-bullying today. So those are the types of things that we need to be leaders of. So we should never underestimate the impact we have, I guess, as leaders out there in the community.
Yeah, and then you're right. That's a good book. I do remember that about that book. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. the great thing too, you talk about early in your career how you were pushed away and you said, no, you're not good enough. And Cody and I have referred back to setbacks and failures and that bounce back, that gritty self-determination. And you were saying, oh, I was viewed as arrogant. And again, is that from back in the day, from your parenting? Would someone that knew you a long time ago see you today and say, yeah, that's Glenn, that's a more mature version of Glenn, but he's the same kid that was running around the field? Or have you changed?
I actually don't know. I mean, I was always a really shy kid at school. And I remember my teacher that when I was, in the Prima 1, Prima 2, early school, when I eventually went on to do Les Mills and stuff, and she's mum was talking to her, and she said that she couldn't believe that such a shy boy could get up and do what I was doing. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, I've changed, and maybe all that fire and that determination and that hunger was always there. I just needed a vehicle to express it. I mean, in hindsight, it wasn't really arrogance. It was just certainty. I just knew that, okay, this is what I was going to do. There was no plan B. It was like, I'm going to become an instructor. I'm going to be a top instructor in this club. And then I'm going to go to Auckland and I'm going to do this. And it's like, it wasn't a matter of if it would happen. It was a matter of when it would happen. And I was so certain about it. And I suppose that's probably for me, that was what drove me. Is I was certain no matter what, it was going to happen. It just was a matter of time. Hard to know what other people would think if they look back at how I was when I was a child. I was always pretty motivated. I was always out there, training. I played football. I was always, training for football, trying to get better. And I worked hard at school. I wasn't the brightest kid in the room, but I wasn't the opposite of that. I was always, average, above average, but I always tried and always worked hard. So yeah, so I probably am the same, but just in a different industry,
Still possess the trademark laugh.
Yeah, still there, mate.
Hey, Glenn, I wanted to ask you.
I know what you're talking about.
You're talking about being, obviously being shy or introverted when you have to get on stage. So Tony Robbins calls it priming, right? Like priming himself for certain situations to ramp up, that whole motion creates emotion sort of vibe. Do you have like a routine before you have to go into those big things that you go through, or do you just switch on the spot, or what's your sort of strategy?
I suppose I do have a process. It's like I always have it's not I don't sort of stand in the changing room going, right, I'm gonna motivate these fuckers, we're gonna go. No, I don't do that. But I sort of I have a little set routine. I think anyone who's obsessive, right, or successful has a routine. And you talk to any athlete or business person, they'll have a routine leading up to the point where they're on. Mine would be, I mean, if I go into the gym, I'm teaching on my own. I'll do a stretch. I'll do all my stuff beforehand. Everything's really ready to go. My mic, my music, my chorus, all so I'm all sort of safe in my head. I might do a stretch. I might pick up a kettlebell and do a few 5-minute warm ups. 5-minute warm up, and then bang, I'm on. Or I might exercise beforehand. Sometimes if I get too anxious before a class, I find I can sit into the moment. If I've been out for a run or done something like that to really calm myself for whatever I'm about to teach. Yeah, it just depends on what class I'm about to do. Filming, not so much of a routine because it's always so different. Like one minute we're filming in Studio 1, to 30 people. Next minute we're standing on a mountainside down in Wanaka or Te Anau. So that has to be quite flexible in my preparation. There's no real routine because it's always changing. So you just have to be really adaptable. But in filming time, it's different because it's a team. It's not just me. If I'm in the gym on my own teaching a class, excuse me, there's more pressure on me because it's just me. But when there's a team of us, it's a group, so it's a little bit easier. To be honest. But yeah, there's always a routine. Always a routine.
Yeah, I found the comparison between one-to-one coaching, as personal training versus the group environment, was when you know, PT, you've always got to be on. If you're doing like 8 hours of PT a day, you're just pulling, all your energy is getting devoured, and you have to always ramp people up. Whereas the group environment, whether it's other coaches or the crew, man, the energy can just sustain for so much longer, and you can just power up for so much longer. Yeah, and it just was that was the love for me as well.
Yeah, peak experience, physical experience.
And it's easy to see, Glenn, when you're up on stage, you love this shit, mate. You
most of the time, yeah.
And so, mate, what are you doing? You've got a young family, and obviously the challenges with that, growing up when the kids and there's lack of sleep, but still you have to front. I mean, how do you pick yourself up? Is it that passion, that determination, that just that hard reset, that process that gets you back into that spot?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of been doing it for so long now. I don't ever have to think about it. And it was hard when the kids were smaller. They're at a good age now, so things are a lot easier than it was a few years back. But yeah, I don't know. I just sort of find a way to But once I'm up there, and if I really especially if I'm trialing new music, if I'm up there trialing new classes and stuff, I get really excited about that. Here's I get that sort of look. We're into it today. We've got a new sprint class or RPM or pump. We've got to try this. And I get a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment and lift by doing that. So that's where I find a lot of my drive is to try new stuff, to try new material,
Yeah, and we feel that, and I know a lot of the instructors and the participants always hope that you're having a good day when you're developing the programs, not a bad day, because there's always the speculation going, holy shit. When you get that new release, sprint is a great example, 30 minutes of high intensity interval training where you are on the ropes. I love it, mate. There's nothing better.
It's my favorite class of the week. I have my Monday class, and it's like a jam, the room is jammed. There's 100 bikes, 100 people. I yell and scream and curse, and they all keep coming back. I'm like, what are you guys coming back for? But we go deep, and like, okay, see you next week. And I was like, no one's going to come next week. They all come back again. So yeah, that's my favorite class. I love that class.
But isn't it great? I commend people all the time, because with sprint, it does what it says on the packet. You are going to get an absolute pasting. You know that if you walk into Glen Ostergaard's sprint class, you are going to have to peel yourself off the floor and dust yourself off. But they come back. They love it. That group fit effect.
It's insane.
It's insane. But how wonderful. And do you ever have those moments, when you look at, like, you go into a pump class, Glenn, and you've done with thousands of participants, where you're standing on stage and you go two steps to the right and everybody steps. Those moments with that group fit, that power of aerobics. Do you ever have those, holy shit, how did I get here? Those moments?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've done some big filming classes in the last few years. And like, you get up there. I mean, I never ever think anything more of myself because of it. But I look out sometimes and, because you're in the moment, right? You don't really think about it. And quite often you're just really focusing on, the 50 or so people in front of you. But even now and then you sort of look up and you just think, you see all these bars, like clean and press bars, all moving at once. You just think, holy fuck, and then you think, okay, and then you go back into what you're doing. But yeah, those are peak experiences. Absolutely. Yeah. And you wonder, how did a shy boy from Motueka get here?
Mate, it's awesome.
Well, I think testament to the story, mate, that gritty determination, that willpower, that's definitely how you got there, the effect that you have on people, as we've talked about, the purpose that you have and the impact you have because of it is stunning. And that's why we're delighted to have you on here as a guest. Now, we talked, mate, about millennials and you see the generations come through. You've been doing this for 30 years. And if I go back to Simon Sinek, he talks about, the millennials stand at the bottom of the mountain, they see the summit, but what they don't see is the mountain sometimes. And that can be hard to manage, that expectation. And I know you are a massive advocate of earning your stripes, because you walk the talk, right? You do the work.
Yeah.
So what's advice to someone standing to you, whether it's a millennial or any age, standing at the base of the mountain looking up, what's the advice if they're about to start their journey, whatever it is, if they look up and see their goal? What's the biggest piece of advice you can give someone in that position?
It's interesting because I've probably got two thoughts on that. One would be, the obvious thing to do, right? Okay, like what I did. Okay, guys, you want to set a goal, write it down, affirm it every day, and then create the habits, with your daily habits, whatever it is you do each day, and that will gradually get you to the top of the mountain, so one step at a time. So that would be my old sort of way of thinking, and I suppose I sort of default to that, and I'm doing that right now, I suppose, with wherever I'm doing. But there's a new way of thinking, I suppose, and in that book, Leaders Eat Last, there's a chapter on millennials at the end, right? I think that was the book, and he talks about how millennials think, and Gen Zs, and see the world's changed,
Yes.
In terms of the way we do business, it's changed, and people's expectations and what people want. And I think millennials, they're just different to us. They've been brought up in a different way. And from what I've been listening to and hearing and reading, is that, millennials, they when a millennial takes a job, they know they're not going to be there for long. They know that they want to join a company where the company has a mission that's, is it climate, some mission outside of making money. Is it sustainability? Is it climate change? Is it diversity? Is it equality? So that they want to work for a company where it has those ideals, and also they want flexibility in working hours. They can work from home. They can bring their dog to work. So I suppose it's like things have changed so much that the way that I would have thought how to do things is different, and I actually don't know what the answer is for how that they will scale their mountain. But I think we have to sort of change the way we approach the world and think about the world and adapt to what's happening. Like all the big businesses are online now. The big businesses are networks and platforms for people to post content on and stuff. And then in 10 years from now, the big companies will be different. So the big companies now, I'm diverging, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, those 5 companies didn't exist 10 years ago. The big companies 10 years ago were Enron, BP, Caltex, all the big oil-based companies. Now they're sort of being shunted to the side, and all these big, massive platforms. And what will be interesting to see is what in 10 years' time, will these current companies still exist? Or, and I suppose that sort of tells you that we sort of need to change the way we approach how we do things. So I don't know the answer to that, but it's something in the way that the world is at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, mate. I think I like to put that into a bit of an example as well. When you're coaching someone, for example, this is how I'll go back, but there's all different people you coach, right? And they all understand a different direction or a different approach to everything. So if you're coaching the business executive, who's the standard travel a lot, eat food, travel, put on a bit of overweight, etc. The language you speak to them about how to get into shape and how to live a healthier life is very different to, again, like a 20-year-old, and for them and how they do it. So it's almost you to just change the language and change the approach that you're speaking to each individual, and based around what they will receive the best and to be able to adapt to the best. So I suppose it's like you're saying, it's a bit of a different approach with everyone. And that's what I look at. Yeah, that's how I see it too when coaching.
Yeah,
and I think if you've coached
environment,
and if you've coaching netball was a game changer for me, for my kids when they were young, because I had to learn a new level of communication, because the young ladies at an age, and I coached both my daughters, would communicate at a completely different level. So I had to sit and listen so I could adapt and communicate effectively. And that's one thing we're big on, that communication, and that's the deep and meaningful chat that we're talking about. Like stuff like this is awesome, where you can just sit down and peel away the layers and just have that deep and meaningful discussion and find out stuff. It's the way people communicate. It's how they were built. It's what their aspirations are, what their dreams are. One thing I am fascinated with, Glenn, because we talk about mindfulness, and we get of an age where we start to I guess, express the way that we think more, and about being present and about being mindful. For you, though, your job means that you are constantly living in the future. So as soon as one event finishes, you are already 3 months ahead. You're working on releases that are maybe 6 months ahead. How do you manage that? How do you manage to stay mindful in that moment when your brain and your work ethic is telling you that I'm already 3 months ahead? You know, how do you manage that?
I suppose for me, as soon as filming's over, that's it. I stop thinking about that release, and I just instantly move to the next one. You know, it's a 3 month thing for me. And yeah, by the time I've done it, I'm over it anyway. I've had enough, you know, like with that particular release, you know.
Yes,
and I'm thinking, and I'm getting excited about the next release, which is I'm sort of doing now. I'm sort of into the music choosing phase of the release, and then, you know, I'll gradually find the songs with the help of other people, and then we'll start with the choreography. I never think about the next release. I never think too far ahead. I go one at a time. And I sort of sit within the moment, and then I get around people that will help me create the next one with ideas and things. But yeah, there's a definite point at the end of filming. Boom, that's it. See you later. Then on to the next one, you know. But I never get too far ahead of myself, because I suppose as they say, you're only as good as your last release, or as good as your last game, you know.
One thing I noticed with you, and you're very clever in the way you do this, Glenn, is you know where the sweet spot is, and you're not afraid to push it past that, so that where you want it to land is a couple of steps back. So you create a little bit of controversy, you get people talking about it, you push them a little too far, and then you bring them back to exactly where you want them to be. Is that a correct statement, or close?
Yeah, it's a really good observation. Not many people pick that up. Yeah, like we did that with Pump, especially Pump, because that's the big one, and so we'll push it quite a lot sometimes. Like we have done the last sort of year or two, with the types of music we've been using. We've sort of gone really sort of left field a little bit and caused a bit of havoc. To be honest, and it's no disrespect to anyone who's listening or watching, I don't tend to worry too much about that feedback from people, unless it comes to a point where there's a real, okay, well, definitely wrong. Because I suppose to make change in the world, you have to be a little bit unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
So there's a great quote, and I can't remember how it's worded. It goes, "All change is due to the unreasonable man, not the reasonable man. The reasonable man will do what everyone expects them to do, and, you know, play the game. But the unreasonable man, you know, doesn't do that, and that's how innovation and change happens. So yeah, so we'll push the envelope a little bit and Pump, and we might have too much grit type music. We might have too much grit type intensity. We might have too many functional exercises and tracks that are weird. But that's kind of cool, because after a while we go, well, it's probably just like you said, and it's probably just a little bit too much, and we pull it back into the sweet spot, and then there's a shift, and the program will be there for a while until we do it again, you know. And that's how you get innovate. That's how you get there's a word for it, I can't remember. Progressive innovation is a name for it. Incremental innovation. Yeah.
That's
To appreciate calm, you need a little bit of chaos, eh, mate?
Oh, you got to. You got to have both, right? Heads and tails, black and white.
And it's also quite good because a lot of people talk about, is the sort of what people can endure is way higher than what we all think, right? You know, there's that sort of percentage. I think it's Goggins, maybe David Goggins talks about 40%. You know, most people when they tap out, they're only at 40% capacity. You know, that's sort of like the mindset a lot of people have, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to keep going. Show them, come back, show them. Love it.
Absolutely.
It's great that you have the ability, you know, not to brush off the feedback. I know people are super passionate about the world that we live in, and especially in terms of group fitness, and there's an intensity about it. People take it personally, and it's testament to how great the programs are and what you've created. And there's always, you know, the weight that you must carry when you're putting together music. So you put together a group of tracks music, you match it with a workout, and you're aware. Are you aware of the scope of or the reach? Is that something that you're always mindful of, or is it just that 100% focus on this is me here now, this is the workout, and then pull the pin, bang?
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it's that focus on, like, yeah, you can't be. It's like, you know, say you're rich in Mwanga, right, playing for the Crusaders. You know, he cops a little bit of flack every now and then if he has a good game or a bad game, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't sit on social media or read the news about how bad and how good he plays. You know, he just gets out. So every day he'll turn up for the Crusaders and hammer the Brumbies or the Hurricanes or whatever, you know. But he's always focused on the performance. And I suppose what we do is the same. We're focused on the class. And if I intrinsically, because I trust my instincts, if I know that this is a great song and this will work and the movements that I put to it will work, then I trust that. And then I trust my immediate mind group, you know, like Diana, Jackie, Philip, Kylie, all those guys. So I trust their instincts that we're producing a good product, and then we put it out there. But it's not to say that we're blind to some obvious blind spots. If someone says, "Oh, that's shit," or whatever, you know, and then over time we go, "Okay, you know, you guys are right. So we just won't use that sort of sound. We just won't do that move," you know. So there's sort of that sort of balance.
I think that mindset crosses over to life a lot, eh? The whole,
yeah.
I like it with the game of footy, right? You've got your task, or you've got your filming day, or your game of rugby. You've prepared up until that point. You perform. You focus on the performance. Let's fucking go. You do it. The outcome is the outcome. What do? You fucking focus on the tweaks and the changes, the adjustments. Fuck, that was good. That needs a bit of work. You change it, and then you fucking go back in for another run.
Yeah.
How good's that? Like, every day is another way to improve and adjust based on the day before, and that's fucking inspiring. I reckon that's cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
Our ability to hard reset and move forward quickly. And Matthew McConaughey in his book Green Lights talks about it, you know, the choking, just not actually focusing on that moment and thinking way too far ahead, or taking into consideration way too many variables, and forgetting what you are doing and the importance of just being there. Mate, so, you know, I guess a couple of things we've talked about, your purpose, we've talked about, you know, the why, I guess, and why you do things, the how you've got here, which is amazing. And I want to talk a little bit, and, you know, I think this will take us through to the end of this, is the legacy. And, you know, the legacy not only in group fitness, but as a human. And we Cody refers to it, and we've referred to it, maybe a morbid term, but it's kind of the tombstone drill, Glenn. Yeah. So, you know, if you think about the legacy, what do you want to be known for? If we look at it like a tombstone drill, what will people say, or what would you love to think people will say about Glen Ostergaard decades from now, years from now, decades?
Funny you should say that. This is the book I'm reading right now. I've read it. This is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Yep. And I'm up to the second habit. And the second habit was begin with the end in mind. And he was talking exactly about that. Imagine if you were at your own funeral, watching the people standing around your coffin or your headstone, and imagine what they would say about you as a person. What, you know, when you weren't here anymore. So that's quite interesting. What would I? Well, I mean, I've had an awesome career with Les Mills. It doesn't define who I am as a person, I don't think. I think I brought myself to the company, and you know, with what was inside of me. So what would I have people think? I mean, I value my family, my children, and my wife, and my mum and my dad, and Sarah's mum and dad. So those are, you know, so maybe it's, I mean, always, I try to be the best dad I can, you know, and I don't always get it right. You know, I quite often yell at the kids and get annoyed, as you do, and don't do the right things at the right time. So I want my children to remember me as, I tell them I love them every day, and mostly every night, and I'll kiss them good night every night and in the mornings. So I want to be remembered as being a loving dad. I want to be remembered as being a supportive husband. And Sarah's, she's into lots of things, and she's out in the world, and she's a go. She's a people person. She's a connector. She's the best connector I've ever met, and I'm quite lucky to have a wife like that, because I'm the opposite, So I want to be known as a supportive husband, and I've supported her with her career and the business that she's running at the moment, all those sorts of things that she's doing. So loving father that told their kids that he loves them every day, a supportive father. With my career, I've thought about like what I want to be remembered as a person that motivated and moved people to be better than they thought they could be, and physically and emotionally is like that. So that would be the thing, like my gifts would be the way that I put the music to the movement and deliver it. And so that would be when you like, these things are hard to put your finger on.
Of course,
this is a murky sort of area, and that's meant to be like that. But that would be that sort of that motivation, that inspiration, and that you can do and be more than you think you can. And maybe that's my legacy for my career. So those three things.
Awesome.
Mate,
I like
that's
that.
That's amazing.
How you break it up. I think it's really important in those situations, in those things. It's break them up, like as a dad, as a husband, in your career. It's cool, man. But that's inspiring. Thanks for the share.
Cool. Thanks, Cody. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's something we should all aspire to be, because those human attributes of love and care and consideration for others, having those is what you really want to be remembered for. And we see it in your social media, the outpouring, the time that you spend with your kids. And Cody and I had a chat about this the other week. I mean, the legacy for you is interesting, right? Because you are on the internet, you are they'll see your pump classes, the children will have flashing memories, but they'll always remember those kisses and the times, that the trips you have, and the moments that they were in trouble and their dad gave them a hug. And there's nothing better than that. And Glenn, we chatted before, because your posts are you're being more expressive in your posts, you're starting to share motivation and more of who you are, which is amazing, by the way. And I'm loving the content that you've got online. And part of it was when I reached out to you at that moment, you were talking and thinking about a podcast, doing a podcast, and then being an email from yours truly. It's funny how you can manifest stuff. It's funny how the universe works, mate? But this, in a way, will become the legacy, because your children will get to see you in this state, more of you talking about the things that are really, really important as a human, breaking you down, talking about your care for them. This will be one of the greatest legacies of all, a diary, a documentation of you as a human. And the fact that you're prepared to just step and the amount of sharing you've done today, mate, has been off the charts, unbelievable. Like, goosebump moments, mate, when I think about the stuff that you've been sharing. So that is amazing. So thank you so much. Now, in reference to the job, and if we talk about that legacy, if the job was a vehicle, a van, filled with all your experience, all of the releases, all of your wins, all of your losses, and you were to hand those keys over at some stage to the next generation, to the next person, and I know that you wouldn't, the expectation wouldn't to be walk a mile in your own shoes. It says you've got your own shoes, forge your own footsteps. That's because that's the type of guy that you are. But what are three things that you would tell that person in that situation with that responsibility?
Okay, that's a good question. So the three things that I would tell the person that, say, for example, who inherits pump. One is that you have to be yourself. That first and foremost, you can't be someone that you're not. You can't try to be someone that you're not. I suppose, I was guilty of that when I first took the pump job. I was sort of thought I had to be like Mike, And
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people who are listening probably won't even remember Mike, but he was a mentor of mine. He was a very polarizing character. You know, he was very special sort of person. And at that time, the company needed his form of leadership and the way he was. And he was, what's the word? Just can't even figure out the word he was. He was just, it was that sort of style of leadership. And so in a way, maybe I came in and thought I had to be like him, but you don't have to be. So you just have to be true to who you are. So if you're taking this position or in any position, so be true to who you are. I think you have to also adapt to the environment that the next person who takes pump over, you know, because the fitness industry now is significantly different to 15 or 16 years ago when I first got the job. So you have to be really adaptable to the environment and work within whatever's going on. Lots of changes happened when I took over in terms of the way we did music and all that sort of stuff. So you have to be really adaptable. And then the third thing, I suppose, you want to put your own swing on things, you know, and whatever talent you have, you bring that to the forefront. So yeah, so those three things. So you want to be yourself in the way you lead the team and create. You want to adapt to whatever the environment is and work with, you know, what's hot and what's not. And then, you know, with the creative stuff is whatever it is that you're good at. You know, like, for example, I like to think that I have good feel for music and I have a clever way I create stuff. That's me. But not everyone's like that. So you just got to come from those three things. You figure out what it is that you're going to add to the program, and then the program moves forward. So those are the three things I would say.
Okay, I read something based off that one. Oh, sorry, Riggers. I was just saying I read something just this morning on that, and it's like it was based around someone trying to do something that someone else does, and it says, just remember, no one else is as good as being you as you are. Like, don't try to copy anyone. Like, just be 100% authentic, because no one else can match you in being you, and that's good, eh?
Yeah, totally.
I think I did a very good Glen Ostergaard for about the first 12 months of my teaching career, mate, to be honest.
I remember you told me that, and I was like, what do you want to be there for?
Yeah, I know. What do you want to be that guy for?
Yeah, he's an idiot. You know what you're talking about.
Mate, and on the back of that, how would that advice change as you pass that on to your children? So 3 things that you would tell your children as they walk out that door into the wide world. I know that, you know, you'll be the father that will follow them to the ends of the earth and support them relentlessly. But what are 3 things that you would impart to your children as they get out into this ever-changing, competitive, fast-paced world that we live in?
The first thing I'd say is show respect to other people. Have respect, especially to older people. You know, like we'll really instill that into the children, to respect Nana and Papa and my dad. You know, to have that respect for the older generation. So have respect. Be kind to people. You know, those are obvious things. You know, have respect, be kind, but also to you know, to follow your dream. You know, whatever it is. And I look at my 3 kids, and I can see each of them has a talent that pops out. It's really obvious. And I'd want my kids to go, well, like Lily. She's so creative. It blows my mind, the stuff that she creates with her hands, and she draws and she just does it, like, doesn't have to think. It's just intrinsic. You know, she has this creative ability, and I'd want her to follow that to its fruition. You know, where she ends up. And my boy Oliver, just the penultimate athlete, just picks up a ball, runs, sprints, jumps. He's just like, unbelievable. And then Ella, she's like a real, she's not extroverted, but she's just really certain. She's a hard child, but she's really certain and determined, and nothing phases her. So those are the 3 things that pop out for me. And I'd want them to follow those things and to explore them as much. So that'd be the biggest thing, is like, go out into the world. You know, we'll do our job to bring you up and give you our values and stuff. But then you go out into the world and you follow your heart and follow what it is that you know that makes you great. And that would be the thing I would say to them. That one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. And the fact that you've got 3 kids and they're all completely different, do you think they're born that way? Do you think it's a result of where they land in your life that gives them those traits? I mean, that's quite a deep question, I guess. But
that's interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Because Lily and Oliver were born on the same day, 3 years apart.
Yeah.
So they share the same birthday, but they're worlds apart in terms of personality and stuff. Yeah, it could be. Like, you know, there are times of, you know, we're sort of in upheaval a little bit, and you know, I think that could change them. I actually don't know, but yeah, it's a hard. I actually don't know that. I just wonder if it's, you know, they call it nature or nurture. You know, it's a bit of both, I suppose. You know, where we are in our life, they'll draw off that. What they have intrinsically in themselves, they'll draw off that as well.
And as they get older, they'll never truly appreciate how cool their parents are, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we did, what we had to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Back
in my day.
Oh.
We had cold gravel. You had cold gravel.
Hey, Glenn, I wanted to ask you as well, as we lead up to, we're getting close to the end, I suppose. Through all the things that, like adversity, or when you're like in the middle of a class where you're like feeling like you're starting to get a bit wrecked, or whatever it is, what would be the go-to thing that Glenn says, whether it's internal or whether you yell it out? What's kind of like your mantra or your billboard statement, the thing that you're like, that keeps you going through those times? Do you have one?
I don't know. I don't know if I had that in a class. I don't really think about it too much anymore. I don't really pop out of the teaching anymore. You might, some people might sort of pop out and think, what's got, you know, pop back in.
Yeah.
I think if you stay in the moment, then you're always going to be in the moment, you know, or that flow state, they call it. But there's nothing sort of, I don't have anything I go to in my head when I'm sort of feeling down. Sometimes I'll notice that I'm not connected as much. That's the thing that drops for me. For me, that will be the thing that drops out the most. I lose my connection to the class, especially when I'm tired. The physical stuff, that's never hard. I don't know.
Well, that makes total sense. It's more the focus, isn't it? Like whether it just drifts, center it back up. So yeah, cool.
And we touched on it already, mate, but you know, we talk about the what's next, and you're starting to share more of your life. You're heading down a track in terms of motivation and inspiring others. Have you ever thought about things like writing a book?
Yeah, I have. I did actually think of that. When I was at high school, I remember, you know when you used to go and see the guidance counselor. Remember that at high school? And they go, right.
Yeah.
I went into Mrs. Keenan's office. What do you want to do, Glenn? Well, I either want to be an author, I want to work in the gym, or I want to be in advertising, right? So those are the 3 things I wrote down. And I remember I went on work experience. I went to an advertising agency in Nelson, and that was cool, man. That was an office, you turn up, and it was all kind of cool and creative things. I enjoyed that. And then I went back to Motueka, and I went to the gym. And there's a gym in Mont, and I did some work at the gym. And being an author, I suppose, it's not really a career path, is it? So those are the 2 things. But yeah, I think one day, I mean, I suppose my aspirations for the future is to take what I've learned from this industry when it comes time to, you know, leave the industry, and, you know, put that into something, you know, either it's writing or speaking or creating a business. I want to use all those things that I've learned over the last 30 years and to help other people. You know, it's not about me, but to, you know, and that's probably why I'm starting to be a bit more vocal on social media, and because I feel like it's time for me to sort of speak. And I haven't spoken for a long time, and now it's time for me to find my voice a little bit outside of what I do, you know.
Stunning, mate. I mean, it's the direction you were heading in. I can't wait to see it grow legs, and certainly excited about the prospect of, you know, you having an outlet, and whether it's in the form of a podcast or those little daily catch-ups, you will always have a home here on the DMC podcast, mate. We'd love you to come back, because this has been, you know, the time's gone super quick, right? And that's the testament to a great conversation. And testament to the kind of person you are, mate. So, you know, like I say, goosebump moments over that conversation. that'll probably wrap it up, I think. Hey, Codes.
Cool.
Yeah, I think so, mate. But yeah, Glenn, I just want to say, really appreciate it. Your legacy with us and the DMC podcast, mate. You're guest number one, and
It's number one.
We've definitely set a very high standard, mate. We've put some pressure on ourselves, and we so Glenn, thanks, mate.
I'm sure you'll find other people. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me on. I mean, I haven't done much stuff like this before, but yeah, I really appreciate it. I wish you guys good luck with the podcast, and hope it goes well. And yeah, that's been amazing, and good to catch up with Adam again. I haven't seen Adam for a while, and good to meet you too, Cody.
You too, brother. Awesome.
And team, yeah, that'll finish it off. But remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go on Instagram. Look up Glen Ostergaard on Instagram. Watch out for the channel. There's some amazing motivation dropping. If we can ask one thing of the people that are viewing, that are listening, like this content, listen, share this interview with others. Just be kind. Be mindful, be present, look after each other. And the pink t-shirt, obviously, anti-bullying, protect each other, look after one another. And as Glenn has been quoted as saying, we are in this together. So thank you so much. That's an epic episode. Glenn, appreciate you, mate. All you do, who you are, committed family man, and absolute legend of a bloke. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me.
Respect.
Pleasure.
All right, everyone. Chat you up next week. DMC Podcast is out. Peace.